Gohan, no pronouns given, from Texas. Gohan wants to talk about a very touchy subject. Let's see. Gohan, are you with us? Can you hear us?
Yes, sir. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great today. Jamie, I think, is a little under the weather, but still up and kicking.
Oh, yeah. He's going to have to do more than that to me to get me to lie down. So what's on your mind then, Gohan?
All right.
Yeah. Hopefully he starts to feel better. All right. I wanted to talk about abortion.
Okay.
Okay. About anything specific about it, or what are your thoughts? What's your position?
So I'm going to give my position in a second, but the way I see it, abortion, like the discussion on abortion usually breaks down into two arguments, either about personhood or about bodily autonomy. And I think, and you guys could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think my position addresses both. So my position is you should be able to kill any human organism when it reaches a high risk of severe harm, but not before that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And so I want to hear if we can tie this to the religion aspect. Is your belief based off of your religious beliefs? I see that you're a theist. Is this based off your religious beliefs, or is there some other reason that you're in this position?
Yeah, good question. I'd say no, it's not. I would say if I became an atheist today, I'd still be pro-life tomorrow. There are plenty of pro-life atheists out there, ranging from Christopher Hitchens to secular pro-life, and they all, in my opinion, except for Christopher Hitchens, who's gone unfortunately, but all do good work currently.
Okay. All right, Jamie, what's your thoughts on the subject here?
So it's actually they're linked. And what I'll do, just straight out of the gate, I will grant to you, I'll give you all the toys, as they say, that as soon as sperm meets egg, then that is a person, right? And that brings us down to bodily autonomy, because I think bodily autonomy is the most compelling argument against forced birth, as I'd like to call it. It is the most compelling argument for access to abortions, because you can't force someone to use their own internal organs and bodily resources to preserve the life of another. You can't. Not legally, not ethically. And by granting fetuses special consideration, you're then giving things like corpses more rights than women. And I don't care that if you could even say, oh, it's their fault, they were promiscuous, or they weren't careful enough, or whatever. It doesn't matter. If I walked up to Scott right here and stabbed him in the kidneys and I was the only viable donor, they can't force me to give him my kidneys. And they shouldn't be able to. And that's pretty much an end of it. Is it unfortunate that a potential life may not come to fruition? Yes. But you can't force a woman to use her womb for someone else in any circumstance. The same way you couldn't force me to use my liver to filter someone else's blood.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Jamie's take there. You mentioned two issues. You mentioned the bodily autonomy issue and the personhood issue. My take is, like I said, pretty much the same as Jamie's. I would say that personhood is an important issue. Is this a person we're talking about? And we're talking about the fetus in this case. Whether or not that becomes a person is an important question. My general take is once that person can survive on their own, once they become their own entity, that's when they gain individual rights. You know, prior to viability, they're really kind of part of the pregnant person in this case, and so they do have rights, but as part of the collective, as part of the whole. Yeah. I think the personhood issue, though, really only affects how we would deal with the issue. For example, I think the bodily autonomy argument trumps any kind of personal issue, personhood issue. I think that even if we do decide that This is a person with individual rights that's growing inside of this other person. I don't think any person has a right to inhabit another person's body against their will. To me, that is that kind of takes priority over any of the other issues.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not the fetus is considered a person, I think that would affect how you do the abortion, whether or not you're going to destroy the tissue or whether or not you're going to deliver a viable baby is a separate issue. And but that would never take priority over the pregnant person's bodily autonomy.
Yeah, giving birth is technically an abortion. It is the termination of a pregnancy.
Yeah.
It's just the end of a pregnancy.
Right. Go ahead. What are your thoughts on that?
So, no worries. I was going to say, I think based off of both of y'all's responses, we can. It sounds like there's still maybe a disagreement about personhood, but I think it's safe to say maybe we could disregard that argument and just go into the bodily autonomy argument. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
That's where I'm coming from. Yep.
Okay. And if either of y'all would like to go into the personhood argument, I'm more than willing. But for right now, we'll just move aside from that.
Well, like the personhood argument comes into it because the fact that abortion laws are becoming so restrictive and doctors are becoming so skittish around doing proper prenatal care that it's costing women lives. It's costing women dignity as well. Yeah. One of the statistics that blew my mind when I saw it, and it's backed up, is that since Roe was overturned, 103 women and girls a day in the US, not a month, not a year, a day, are forced to give birth to their rapists' babies. A day. You don't find that morally reprehensible, Gohan?
So do you want me to respond to that question or respond to the bigger argument? It's up to you.
As I say, I mean, you choose which way. It's your call. I just wanted to make a point of that because that disgusts me. But anyway, after you.
Yeah, so I don't think I'm in the minority when I say rape is terrible. I don't agree that rapists should get the death penalty, but I do think they should get life in prison without parole and let that be the end of it. As far as for the kid that was created from the rape, let me ask you, why do they deserve the death penalty for something their father did?
Well, I don't think it's a death penalty for something their father did. I don't think that it's a life that, let's say, let me tell you this. A father, a horrible father, despicable father, beats his kid to near death. The kid is in critical condition and needs an organ transplant, and the only viable donor is the mother. Should the mother be legally compelled to give her organs to that child?
I would, if I can have a quick response really quick, I'm going to say no. And the reason
so why does she have to use her womb for the violence of the father?
Sorry, I was just about to try to answer that. The difference is organ donation and abortion are not the same. Organ donation is about saving a life. Abortion is about killing a life. So
no, you are continually preserving a life. To remove that means the life ends, and it would be the same as if you're providing blood transfusions or allowing someone to hook their organs into yours, using you as a sort of human filtration system.
That's like saying if I get stabbed by somebody, the person who stabbed me is going to get in trouble, not only for stabbing me, but also for not giving me their blood. That's absurd. They should only get in trouble for stabbing me. They only have the responsibility of not killing me. They do not have the responsibility of saving my life. Same goes for the fetus and the birth mom. If you don't want to save that life, fine. Just don't kill it. That's all I'm saying. Don't kill that.
So that's not an option before 24 weeks most of the time. And so why should they be forced to do that? You know? Are you potentially suggesting we make sex like sex a legal issue? Like, oh no, you got to make sure that you're licensed to bone. I don't know. If the crime is having sex, you know, like creating, like having a pregnancy, like, and the consequences, you know, the determination of the fetus is the equivalent of the blood transfusion. I mean, I'm not seeing where this is meeting, man. I mean, I really don't agree with you.
So it seems like it's almost like a trolley problem issue where it makes a distinction between actively causing harm versus passively allowing harm to happen. So let me ask you this, Gohan, if the embryo or the fetus could be removed alive, even though you knew it would die immediately after being removed, then you'd be okay with that, apparently, according to your logic. Is that right? If they were alive when it was, if it was alive when it was removed and then died as part of natural progression, then that's okay. That's just unfortunate. They're of no responsibility to maintain that life by continuing the pregnancy. Is that so? Would you be okay with that then? That type of abortion where they remove the fetus and then if it dies on its own, then that's it?
That's very close to my my standpoint, but it's not there, because once you remove that fetus, it is by every single definition a born human being. And now it requires life-sustaining assistance. And whoever made the decision to take away that life-sustaining assistance should be in trouble, same as if you threw a baby in the water and said, yeah, I'm not going to save it at this point, but you can't get mad at me for putting it in an environment in which it can't survive.
So what you're saying is that if you can give life-saving assistance, you're morally obligated to do so? Is that it?
No, you're not allowed to remove life-sustaining assistance from somebody who has not consented to that.
Well, up until legally, up until a child, not just a fetus, a child is of age, their guardian is their consent giver. There are many people on life support who can't give consent, but have given power of attorney to other people. Plenty of people die in this country, not by their own consent, but by the wishes of their family, because they don't have the capability of giving consent. So if we take that logic, the mother has every right to say, I don't want this child to be this child, a fetus, an 8-week-old fetus, to be provided the life to have the life-sustaining care on them, and that's their legal right. They can do that.
I mean, if you're going with consent as being the main thing, then maybe you have an argument. I'm also against what's it called? Death under anesthesia. No, what's it?
Euthanasia?
Medical assistance in dying.
Yeah, no, I disagree with you on that as well. I think people should be allowed to die when they want to die.
For sure. Yeah, I think so.
Well, I think that's a minor point that we can discuss later, but I would like to discuss more the major point of you're not allowed to kill a human organism unless there's high risk of severe harm.
So do you think there's a difference between like some human cells and a human being? Or are you making a distinction when you use that word, being?
Yes, so I'm trying to be as scientific as possible. That's why I'm not using the word being, because that's a philosophy term. But if we stick to the hard science of biology and just use human organism, that cuts through a lot of the discrepancies of what we're talking about. So that would eliminate like cell tissue. Like I've called in before and somebody was like, yeah, when I brush my teeth, I'm killing a lot of humans. You're killing a lot of human cells, but none of those are human organisms. So I'm talking about human.
So when does a fetus become a human organism? Scientifically,
when does that transition happen?
Before. It happens before it's a fetus, when it's a zygote. The moment
it's not going to be able to survive outside of its mother's womb. Surely viability should be the cutoff line, because a human organism, by definition, is one that is able to survive, like live independently.
Or that would at least be at a stage of development where it would normally be able to maintain viability. There's a difference between not being non-viable because it's underdeveloped versus being non-viable because of some kind of
Illness,
disorder or something.
You guys are. I'm going to try not to be rude, but you guys are both incorrect. We don't
Incorrect about what?
classify organisms based on viability. We don't classify organisms on viability. We classify them based on their DNA. So when
I've got human DNA in. Like, should I be convicted of manslaughter every time I have a wank? There's plenty of human DNA in there.
I just talked about this. None of those are organisms. Those are.
But they're all potential babies, though. They could have all been babies. What about fertilized eggs that? What about fertilized eggs that are naturally flushed because they don't attach? That's a fertilized egg there. It naturally, but it didn't attach to the uterine wall. Should the mother's every girl's period be analyzed to make sure there isn't a dead potential baby in there?
And that could be most pregnancies, by the way.
Did you purposely kill that fertilized egg? If you did not purposefully kill it, then that's not a part of the conversation. But if you did purposefully kill that human organism or fertilized egg, same thing, then yes, that's what I'm against.
So intent is important, is what you're saying? So then, if they have the fetus removed without the intent of killing it, and then it dies of natural causes, then that's okay, right? That's
let's
where your logic is.
Is at high risk of severe harm, and she removes the fetus because she's at high risk of severe harm, and tries to make the fetus live. Her intent is not to kill the fetus.
But let's say there's no risk there's no risk of severe harm. Even though in every pregnancy there is some risk, right?
Oh yeah, and pregnancy is not easy. Pregnancy is a trauma.
Even if we're disregarding that, okay.
Yeah,
so if somebody who's pregnant, they want this, they want it taken out, and they have it taken out alive, and then it dies.
So I'm saying most of the time pregnancy does not have high risk, but it always has risk.
You fucking what, man?
So you're asking about when it does not. You're asking when it does not have high risk, when it just has a normal amount of risk for a pregnancy. Is that correct? I just want to be clear.
Yeah. It didn't answer my question, though.
And also, I would like to make it clear.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Stop. Go ahead just for a sec. Terminating a pregnancy is not killing. It is removing the life-sustaining organ from an organism, but it is not an act of killing. It is not inducing death. You are misappropriating. Abortion is not killing.
Say that again. What?
Terminating a pregnancy.
Abortion.
Terminating a pregnancy is not killing. It doesn't. It is. At most, removing life-sustaining function from another organism, which is perfectly legal.
At most.
Yeah.
At most, it's that, yeah.
At most, but it is not killing.
Sure. Can I ask a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Can you tell me one time when a successful medical abortion happened when the human organism was not killed before they came out of the mother?
Every premature cesarean section, 24 weeks and on. A bunch of them happen. Preemie babies come out all the time. That's an early termination of a pregnancy.
Medical abortion, that's a live birth where the preemie dies.
No, it's a medical abortion is any medical procedure that terminates a pregnancy. Yeah. If the fetus continues to live, then it's called a birth.
Yes. So excluding births either with...
Oh, no, is that sound of goalposts being moved? I hear the squeaking wheels.
Let's set aside those examples. If we just focus on these...
Where am I trying to move the goalposts? Away from live births?
You said medical abortion, a medical procedure to terminate a pregnancy early, and delivering a premature baby through cesarean section meets that criteria.
Is that a live birth? Is that a live birth?
It's still a medical termination of a pregnancy. It becomes a live birth if the procedure is successful.
What Jamie is saying is that a live birth could be a form of medical abortion. It terminates a pregnancy.
I mean, it is. It is, right? Because abortion is just defined as a termination of pregnancy. So, I mean, technically he's right. It is defined as that, but clearly I'm not talking about live births. So I just want to make sure. Yes.
So you're saying, so your question was completely facetious then, Gohan. Can you give me one example of when a completely unviable fetus was removed from the uterus and miraculously became viable? No, obviously not. And that's not a gotcha. That's a dumb question. Apologies for being a little bit spiky. I'm not in the mood to suffer fools today.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just trying to establish what I'm talking about. I'm not trying for a gotcha. Just want to establish. I'm talking about when a fetus is killed inside the womb. And
not killed.
Comes out.
Not killed. Die. Well, it doesn't even die. Its functions terminate. It's not even really a life yet. Remember, it's not killing.
Yeah, killing. That's kind of smuggling the conclusion in a little bit there.
Yeah, begging the question.
Was there a human life there before?
A human life, though. So that has to. That's going back to that personhood question. You said before that you thought personhood begins at conception. Is that what you said? So that's a fertilized ovum is a person.
Yes. Whenever a zygote is formed, every scientific definition, 95% of biologists say that is a human.
So what is their reasoning?
It's a nascent human organism that has not yet grown. I wouldn't call it a person. I can't go down to a flipping pub with it.
Well, what did the scientists say? What was their argument? Because quoting scientists only has value in that scientists usually have reasons behind their conclusions. Just saying a scientist says a thing that doesn't really do it for me, right? So I want to know the reasoning. If all scientists agree on this, then it should be pretty easy for you to come up with the explanation. So what exactly is the reasoning behind that? Because I don't think it's as tied to unique DNA as you suggest. Because, for example, most pairs of identical twins have identical DNA, yet we still count them as two people. Also, within your body, every cell in your body does not have the same DNA. There are reproduction errors and things like that. And so you actually have a variety of different genomes in your body right now as we speak. But still, we only consider you to be one individual, right? So I think that personhood is not just a function of the amount of DNA that somebody has or the nature of that DNA or the uniqueness of that DNA. There has to be something more. Is that just because that's a convenient point to select that will support your position, or is there reasoning behind this position that you're taking?
No, I appreciate the question because this is not something I talk about a lot, and it is 100% fair to bring up. So I would say when we classify an organism, we don't do it based off its looks or location. We do it based off its DNA. So first we have to establish if X, whatever we're talking about, is an organism. Is a zygote an organism? Yes. Then we have to.
So you would say twins are an organism then, right?
Yeah, I would say twins are organisms.
An organism, one, right? Because they only have one unique DNA between the two of them.
No, I'm saying there are two organisms. I haven't gotten into DNA yet. I'm just talking about what classifies an organism.
Right. Well, you mentioned DNA as the reason for that classification, and so I just want to make sure that we're consistent here.
Sorry, the DNA does not classify if you're an organism or not. It classifies which organism you are. Like, okay, my DNA says I'm an acorn. No, my DNA says I'm a wolf. No, my DNA says I'm a Homo sapien. You can tell that based on the DNA. You can tell what kind of organism it is. So it doesn't matter what step you go first. Either if you establish first it's an organism or first it's human being. I don't have a preference. So then whenever you're talking about multiple cells in your body,
but you said that at conception was when the ovum becomes a person, becomes an organism.
Yes.
Okay, so what's the justification for that?
So that's when the DNA is formed, whenever a zygote is there. So fertilization is complete when the DNA in the cell has completely formed. That's when fertilization is done. So that's
Right. What I'm asking is why do you put the cutoff point there? And I ask this knowing, we've been on the call for, 20 plus minutes here. So I do want to kind of an ending point for us to discuss here. So why choose that point as the demarcation line for personhood?
So that point is not the demarcation line by itself for personhood. That's the point to establish whether it's a human or a wolf, just based on the DNA. And then you establish personhood if it's a human organism. So we know based off the DNA it's human, and if it's an organism, hey, you got yourself a human organism. Most of the cells
you're gonna have to define organism there, mate, because up until that point, all those criteria also just apply to cancer. Complete human DNA, growing, sustaining from a body, like you've just described. You've just described a lymphoma,
and it would also describe an unfertilized egg as well. Unfertilized eggs can be identified as human or canine or whatever.
So I'd like to talk about both of those really quick. A cancer is not an organism. It usually starts off as a cell, and if worst case scenario happens, it can grow into a tissue, but it's not an organism. There's different levels of hierarchy. You start with cell. The highest level you can get to is an organism. Cancer is not a cell. It's not an organism. It is a cell, possibly tissue, but it does not become an organism. And then as far... Sorry, you brought up something.
Thing is, Gohan, as I say, we've been on this call for 25 minutes. I would like you to call us back. I would like you to go ahead, and I'll do this myself. I'm going to go and find a definition of the word, what the definition of the word organism is. I want to talk to some. I know a biologist. He's got funny hair. I'll ask him what defines an organism, and then maybe we can reconvene. But we've gone off in several different directions here, so perhaps this would be best served in another call. So if I'm back on again, or Scott, I think it might be good for
definitely. Yeah, I think that I'd like to hear a little bit more detail on how you come up with that demarcation line. You talked a little bit about DNA, and then you kind of pushed away from that, and then you were talking about. It seemed like to me like you were hinting that there was a functionality component too, as far as being an organism. And I think that's kind of the same position I'm on as well. I think that functionality, being able to survive, being able to fulfill the requirements of what we call an organism. I think that's part of it. And so, so like Jamie said, I'd like for you to think on that a little bit more, and then maybe give us a call back at some point when we can look more specifically at that difference there.